So tonight, I just wanted to direct everybody to the chat function. You might also see the Q&A bubble. I'll be monitoring those throughout the night while David's doing the core part of the presentation. We're definitely going to stop and address questions that come in through the chat. And so please feel free to type things in. I know you're all muted by the library, but we want to make sure that we're addressing questions as we go.
Yeah,
so with that, I'll hand it over to David.
Yeah, there should be a lot of questions, and hopefully there will be. Anything that you're concerned about, I assure you, everyone else is concerned about it too. Robin and I are both independent insurance brokers. What that means is, in the world of Medicare, what we're going to see here shortly, it's a landscape with fierce competition. And capitalism, when it's kept on the rails, works really well, but only if you avail yourself of all of the tools that you need to save money. And one of those tools is to make fully informed decisions. What we do is represent all the insurance companies that sell these different products. We'll talk about that. This isn't about selling tonight. It's purely about education. Our hope is that by educating you, you'll see the need to maybe dig a little deeper and give us a chance to help you navigate this world. Started teaching this course, gosh, I guess almost 12 years ago now. Medicare 101 Basics is what it is. I just found so many people that were coming to the world of Medicare, and they were making mistakes. I mean, flat out mistakes. They did what their neighbor told them to do, or what their brother-in-law did, and that might have been perfect for them, but wasn't the right option for their particular situation. And it's a confusing world, I'll give you that. It's different from what you've had for years. Most people, they're going to come to this world off of their employment insurance. And every year the employer brings you the new plans and basically says, here it is, take it or leave it. And you obviously take it. It's a great benefit. It's one of the reasons why you work there. But it leaves you really divorced from all of the proceedings and all of the knowledge and all the things that go into your health insurance. Is it, what size is the network, and what's the deductible and the co-insurance, and what are the co-payments, and what's the wellness benefit, what's the drug benefit? All of these things have been predetermined, and they bring you the final product. And now it's time for you to learn how to do this on your own. And now there are decisions for you to make, and it can be confusing, certainly. Your mailbox is going to fill up with stuff from the insurance companies, but that's all advertising. That's all propaganda. Your phone will probably ring off the hook, and you'll make decisions, and maybe sometimes just out of exhaustion, you wind up doing something, but maybe not sure that you made the smartest choice. And that's what we want to do here tonight, give you an overview. What is Medicare? What does it cover? What does it not cover? And what are your options for these additional pieces of insurance that they're peppering you with? We're entering a very crazy time for Robin and myself. It's called the annual election period. Technically, that's what it's called. You would know it as open enrollment. That runs from October 15th to December 7th each year, giving us the opportunity to change parts of your coverage. And it's a good time for a checkup. Unfortunately, all the commercials on TV and all the mail you'll be receiving will be screaming at you about the big changes to Medicare. There have been no big changes to Medicare. That's just a hook trying to get you to call. You'll see these ads on TV with a giant Medicare card talking about additional benefits. That's not Medicare. That's a sales site, and those are sales agents that are waiting to try to pressure you into buying something or changing your coverage that you might not need to. In this world, you probably feel a lot like this guy. When you first come to Medicare, it is crazy, and everybody has their 2 cents worth, and I know your family loves you and your friends adore you, and they're filling your ears with information, but this is a world of partial sentences and half-truths and floating asterisks that if you didn't understand, you can make mistakes. And the problem with Medicare is those mistakes may not present themselves for years and years and years, and maybe 10 or 15 years down the road, you realize that maybe you didn't make a fully informed decision, and maybe you've been paying way more than you should have. And that's what we want to talk about here tonight. All that stuff that fills up your mailbox, that's all propaganda. What you really want to do is get your hands on this book, Medicare and You. The 2021s have just started to hit, and this is the Bible of our industry. All that other stuff is advertising, but this is the encyclopedia of Medicare. This is a great way to find out about the different parts of your coverage and the specifics involved. It does 2 things incredibly well. Chock full of knowledge, and it's also an incredible sleeping aid. If you have trouble dozing off, this thing will knock you down in pretty short order because it's a dry read. But what you need to know is in there. And if that's too difficult for you, pick up the phone and call 1-800-MEDICARE. That's not a sales site. Those are federal agents that are there helping you navigate this world of Medicare. In that world, Medicare's cornerstone is competition. And if you use that to your best outcome, you can save an awful lot of money on your journey through Medicare. This encyclopedia and the 1-800-Medicare number, I mean, those guys are there 24 hours a day. Never call an insurance company first thing Monday morning. I get people complain all the time. Of course, they're going to be overwhelmed by all the calls that they get. But these 1-800-Medicare people, call them at 2 in the morning. And like Jake from State Farm, they're still waiting for your call. In that world, you've got the book, you've got the phone number, and then you've also got an excellent website, Medicare.gov, G-O-V. Please note that. Medicare.com, for the life of me, I don't know how they ever let that come to market because it's confusing. People think it's Medicare, right? It's the federal government. No, sorry. That's a sales site. And I would counsel you to be very careful about the websites you visit, because they're going to capture your information and then they sell it to even more agents and they start calling you. It really can get out of hand pretty quickly. But this website, these are all drop-down menus. You can get all sorts of great information. You can even sign up initially for your Medicare right here online. But the tool that we use the most on this website is right here, where it says Find Plans. And what that allows us to do is to research your prescription drug coverage, your Part D drug prescription coverage. That comes up for renewal every year. And it would be silly not to at least take a look at it every couple of years to make sure that you're in the best possible plan, because competition on these drug programs have driven prices down. And we'll do this with our current clients. We'll do this with new clients to find, currently this year, we've got 28 different drug programs to choose from. And I see people's eyes rolling. Why 28? No, 29 would be better, 30 better still. I'm hoping this next year we have 35. We won't see all the new plans until October 1st. But that level of competition, all kept on the rails by Medicare, because Medicare is the new sheriff in town and they run the show. So those 28 companies got to play by Medicare rules. And because they're all looking for a niche in the marketplace, they are beating each other over the head to win your business. And we'll have at any given point in time, the ability to see all those plans, whether you're coming to Medicare for the first time or whether we want to do an annual checkup. And that happens every year from October 15th to December 7th. What is Medicare? Pretty simply, it's the government insurance program for folks over 65. It's different from Social Security. Social Security is the monetary benefit. That's where they give you back less money than you ever gave them. Medicare is the medical benefit. These two benefits stand apart from each other. You can have one without the other. You do not have to have both to get into this program. But it's for folks over 65 and also people that have dread disease, waiting for a kidney transplant, or Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS, or certain issues. If you're under 65, that will allow you to also come onto the world of Medicare, and that can be a godsend for a lot of people. Those cases, those under 65 Medicare folks, if you've been declared disabled for 24 months, you can get your Medicare A and B, and those folks present unique challenges, and we'll touch on that a little bit later. But here, the big takeaway on this slide, what you got to know, Medicare is an excellent program, but it was never designed to cover 100%. In the world of Medicare, there's portions that Medicare covers, and there's co-payments that you use and deductibles and things of that nature. But you got to understand that original Medicare is not complete, and you will want to add additional coverage to be fully covered as you age. That's what we'll talk about here tonight. Here's where your journey begins. Here's your Medicare card. Our parents, probably, if you looked at their card, I'd be willing to bet they took their Medicare as of the first day of the month in which they turned 65. Everything in the world of Medicare operates on the first day of the month. So if you were born on the 23rd, it don't matter. You'd go effective on the first of that month. In that world, you would see your mom and dad probably when they turned 65, they took Medicare, they retired. That was the golden ticket. That was the finish line. It was time to hang it up and take the grandkids fishing. But the baby boomers are driving significant changes in this market. One of the most notable changes is that they're not ready to retire at 65. They're in better shape at 65 than their parents were at 55. And they like the work, they like the socialization, they certainly like the money, and their coverage at work presents an opportunity. And really one of the first potholes that Robin and I will run into all the time, your friends and family members are going to be screaming at you as you approach 65. You got to sign up, because if you don't sign up, there's going to be penalties, and the world's going to fall down around your ears. But in that world, that's a partial sentence. There could be penalties, but if you have creditable coverage, that means you continue to work. Where you work, there's more than 20 people. That's a magic number. If there's more than 20 people that work there, you could maintain that coverage and delay activating your Medicare. Now, for most people, activating Part A can't hurt. A and B cover us for different stuff. We'll tear that apart in a second. But activating Part A couldn't hurt you because A has no premium. But this Part B does have a premium. And we run into, on too numerous occasions, people who went and activated their Medicare Part B because they were told to do that. Their friends said, you got to do it. And they blindly followed that advice, activated their Part B, and continued to work at the job where they had creditable coverage, standing in primary position. Medicare was simply standing on the sidelines and might pick up some things, but certainly they were paying way more than they needed to pay for this secondary insurance. This year, that Part B is $144.60. And probably the worst one that I ran into is I had a gentleman last open enrollment, and he had been to a couple of seminars. We used to be able to do these things in person. And finally, we got together, and he did agree, because usually on a husband and wife, on a spousal type situation, you work there, they love you, you pay a very little amount for your insurance, and you bring your loved one, and that's a beautiful thing, but they're paying a lot more than you are. And when you tear that apart, we looked at his coverage, and he did agree that Medicare was a better value than what she was paying to have him on her coverage. So we kind of looked at everything, and he whips out his Medicare card, and lo and behold, he activated the Part B when he first turned 65. And I know why he did that. Everyone told him he had to. But now I'm sitting there across the table, and he's been explained the fact that he didn't need to activate that Medicare Part B. He's 82 years of age. For 17 years, he's been paying a premium for something that he frankly was never going to use because her coverage was primary, standing in first position. We want to be really sure of what you're doing. We would like to see you if you cared to meet. You know, people always ask, when should we get together? And we always say, whenever you feel your blood pressure going up. But certainly within 90 days of you turning 65, that's a really good time to have a clubhouse meeting with us or Social Security or people that can advise you in this world of Medicare. We always like to be ahead of the curve. They won't automatically send you this card unless you've started your Social Security benefit payments. If you started your Social Security benefit payments and the government can get their premium for Part B, they will default believing that you want it, and they'll automatically send you the card. You can send it back if you keep your coverage through work or your spousal coverage. But in that world, that's the only way you get it automatically. Otherwise, Medicare just waits. They wait to hear from you. They're not going to send it to you automatically. You're going to need to tell them no more than 3 months out from your birth month that you want to fire this thing up. And they'll send you the card, and they'll start charging you that Part B premium, but only if it's appropriate for your situation. If you wait until your birth month, it would go effective the next month. But if you wait after your birth month, you start running into timing delays. They want you to sign up early, and it's the best place to be, at least 60 to 90 days out. Let's have a clubhouse meeting and make sure we know exactly what you want to be doing. That Part B premium is $144.60 asterisk. It's $144.60 based upon income. And this income is called IRMA, your income-related monthly adjustment amount. IRMA says the more you make, the more they're going to take. And what happens there is people will be making financial decisions at 63, 64, 65 before they come to Medicare and not realize that that can have a sonic boom effect. This whole process is run by the government, and the government's looking at their computers, and their computers are a little slow on the uptake. So in 2020, they can only see your 2019 returns. Your 2019 returns actually report what you made in 2018. So it's always a 2-year look back. They keep looking back. And if in 2018, as a married couple, you made less than $174,000, then you'd pay the base premium. But if you've been successful, the government would like to participate in that success. The old adage rings true. The more you make, the more they take. And you can see where these income brackets start stepping you up pretty substantially. Not only do they bump you on the Medicare Part B, they also bump you on the Medicare Part D, as in drugs. In that world, they will always be looking 2 years back. So, you might have killed it in 2018, you did great in 2019, but now you've retired. You've experienced what's called a life-changing event. That's the terminology they use. You're retired. You're not making that kind of money anymore. Your income has come way, way down from these bigger numbers, and now you're comfortably under 174. Not to worry. The government is going to discover that, but it's going to take them about 2 years to figure that out. And I don't want to be paying more than I'm already paying for this stuff. I love my government. I just don't want to give them a nickel more than they're already taking. So in that situation, you do have the right to file an appeal. And we can get you that paperwork. You can get it at Medicare.gov. They'll send it to you from 1-800-MEDICARE. But if you can prove that your income has dropped, perhaps that's a letter that you no longer work where you're working, that type of thing, or a pro forma income statement from your accountant, something to that extent. They're going to want proof, but they do have a heart. And we do have the ability to drive these premiums down based upon a life-changing event. So we want to watch that as well. Robin, you got to jump in here.
Yes, thank you. A couple of things. One is this open enrollment window that we're a couple of weeks away from, it sometimes confuses people a bit because oftentimes they'll have turned 65, they're continuing to avail themselves of their or their spouse's group benefits, and the open enrollment comes a few months later and they think they need to jump in when their spouse might not be retiring and stepping away from their employer coverage until next spring or next summer. And so don't get caught up in this open enrollment window. You will always have a special enrollment opportunity when you decide to step away from that employer coverage if you are past that initial enrollment period David just described, which is the 7 months around your birthday. There was a question that came in with respect to retiree coverage. And the one thing that you need to keep in mind is if you've retired early before age 65 and your company has allowed to continue to be on the medical plan as a retiree benefit, that's wonderful. But when you turn 65 and become Medicare eligible, you do need to turn on Medicare Part A and B and put both of those in the primary position, because your ability to delay Part B without penalty being the optimal words, is based on group coverage from an employer where you're still working. And so Medicare does give you a window of about 7 months to get there, but just know that if you delay past that window and you're past age 65 and you're no longer actively working, and that's a retiree benefit or a COBRA benefit, for example, you're going to need to get Medicare Part A and B in place in the primary position.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of situations where your HR department, they're wonderful people, but they hardly understand the group health insurance that they're helping you with. And when you come to Medicare, they're lost. COBRA is not considered to be creditable coverage. How can that be? It's exactly what I had through work, and now I'm paying for the whole thing. I know, but the idea that you're no longer working and you're no longer paying those employment taxes, the government says no. COBRA, when it comes to Part B, is not considered to be creditable coverage. And furthermore, read your COBRA paperwork, like every line, because what you're going to find is COBRA coverage says if you're entitled to Medicare, they're going to cover you as if you've got Medicare. And I've seen people get burned. They're waiting to activate their Medicare Part B. I've got COBRA. There's no need to worry about getting it. I'll wait till Robin said you've got 8 months after you've officially left your employment to get B without penalty. But if you're running with just COBRA, you're exposed. And we'll see that here in a second, because Medicare would do the heavy lifting and COBRA will only be the supplement. And people need to be aware of that they've got to activate this Medicare if you're on COBRA and you're over 65. They want that to be the case. And then, Robin, talk a little bit about Part A and HSA. I didn't mention that, but that's important.
So for those of you that have an HSA, a healthcare savings account, you know that you're able to contribute to that tax-free if you're in a high deductible health plan. And turning on any part of Medicare, including Medicare Part A, is considered other insurance, and it will negate your ability to continue to make those tax-free contributions to your HSA. So we advise most of our clients to just be aware that if you plan to come to Medicare and you're contributing to an HSA tax-free, your Part A effective date, if you're past age 65, could retroactively be dated for an effective date that is 6 months behind your application date. When you come under a special enrollment and you've left employer coverage, let's say at age 67, you can tell Medicare when you want Part B to start, but in that circumstance, once you apply for A and B, your Part A is going to retroactively start 6 months, but no sooner than the month in which you turned 65. And during that window, oftentimes people get stuck because they're contributing to their HSA and then they have to pay those tax-free dollars back. So that's why you'll read a lot on Medicare.gov or in the publications that David talked about. You'll read the guidance and advice that you should stop contributing to your HSA within 6 months of applying for Medicare Part A. So that's really the only circumstance under which we would advise somebody not to turn on Part A when they turn 65 and continue to stay on a group health plan.
Yeah, and to Robin's point, you can sign up for this card up to 3 months ahead of your birthday. But if you continue to work and you wait, and you took that A, you'll get the card with A on it. But then now you're ready to retire. What do you do? How do you fire up this Medicare? Well, it's pretty simple. There's 2 forms. We can send them to you. One form says, hey, I'm ready now. I want to start my Part B. Great. The other form your employer fills out, it's an attestation that you've had the creditable coverage. Those 2 forms go into the local Social Security office, and that's what allows them to activate that Part B anywhere down the road without penalty or delay as of the first day of the month that you want it to start. So this is waiting for you further down the road. There's 4 different parts to Medicare. We're going to talk about all of them here tonight, but understand A and B form the foundation. Got to have A and B to do anything else. We're going to tear that apart here in a second, and you're going to see that A and B really good, but A and B not complete. So once you've got those 2 in place, you'd certainly want to pick up a drug program. That would just be smart. And you may even be looking at these advantage programs. And these are the things that are going to be advertised like crazy on TV as we move into this annual election period, because you can choose them when you first come to Medicare, or every year you get the opportunity to maybe try one of these advantage programs. And we're going to talk about that as well a little further down the road. Hopefully, Christina sent you guys this, and you've got some handouts that we sent. And this would be the first page. And what I love about this, it's simple. It's what I call the roadmap of Medicare. What we want to try to do here tonight is make things simple. I always have to laugh. There's a book called Medicare for Dummies. It's like 300 pages long. How dumb could it be? But in this world, we do like simple. And this is the view of Medicare from the Goodyear blimp. You're up at 2,000 feet looking down on the field. And you'd want to know that you and the federal government will decide when you want to start your Medicare A and B. You got to have that to do anything else. But once you've got A and B and you understand the rules of engagement there, you're going to understand that it's not complete, and you'd want to pick up different coverage, more coverage. And that can take 2 different pathways. One pathway is called Original Medicare, and that's where we have Medicare in primary position now. We're going to add a drug program, add a supplement, and those 3 parts work in concert to provide you with excellent coverage. Then there's another option that you might want to consider called Medicare Advantage. You do one or the other. You don't do both. And this Advantage idea is a little bit different. Instead of 3 different parts to your coverage, now there's just one part, one company, one private insurance company steps in and runs everything for you. Both pathways have positives and negatives. No one program is right for everybody. That's why we've got 28 different drug programs. We got 39 companies selling supplements. We currently have in Cook County 46 Advantage plans, but each one is unique and each one has special features because everybody's situation is different. We'll talk about that. But you got to have A and B. That's between you and the federal government. All this other stuff, this is where Robin and I play, representing all those companies and trying to help you see the full field of options. Many people will work with a captive agent. Blue Cross has wonderful agents that will come out, but the problem is they only represent one company. You're only going to look at what they're doing, and although it's a good company, it's not the end all, and all these companies fight for your business on a level field of play, and that's a good thing for us as consumers because it helps keep costs down. A and B good, A and B not complete. Let's tear that apart. What is Medicare Part A? If there's one word for Part A, you want to write down facilities. All of the buildings, all the facilities that you come into contact with, that's the domain of Medicare Part A. A has no premium. I always have to laugh when I hear agents say it's free. It's not free. You paid a boatload in taxes, and you'll keep paying taxes, so it's never free. And furthermore, although there may not be a premium, there is exposure, things that you'll be expected to pay for if all you have is original Medicare. But this world of Part A, well, no building could be more important than the hospital. The hospital's pretty critical, but it's not free. And then from the hospital, you might be discharged into skilled nursing. That's rehab or step down. We like that a lot. It's a lot less expensive. They don't have an MRI machine on every floor. They don't have an emergency room downstairs losing money hand over fist, but it's not free. Then you have home health services. And this is a wonderful temporary stopgap, get you back on your feet, medical visits right to your home. Medicare will provide for that. But home health is different from what you would consider to be long-term care or assisted living. That's a different kind of insurance. Home health services is where they come and help you get back on your feet. Maybe it's wound dressing after a major medical event or a handful of physical therapy visits, but their goal is to get you where you can go out and see the doctors where it's less expensive. And hospice is the last part of Medicare Part A, and whether that was in a hospice facility or in the privacy of your own home, that's going to bill up under Medicare Part A, which is all of your facilities. No premium, but exposure. We mean things that you're going to reach into your pocket and pay for. That hospitalization, you go spend one night in the hospital, that's a copayment this year of $1,408 for one night. And before that shocks you, it's not just for one night. That $1,408 would actually cover you for up to 60 nights in the hospital and upon discharge for 60 days. So you go into the hospital for your emergency appendectomy, and you're in there for 2 nights. You own the $1,408 the first night. The second night's covered because you made your copayment. It all goes well, and you go home, and 3 weeks later, you got nothing better to do. You decide to have a heart attack and go back into the hospital. You're within your benefit window. They wouldn't charge you the $1,408 again. But if on day 61 you have that heart attack and you go back to the hospital, yes, you're outside of your benefit window, and that resets every 61 days. So you could imagine stranger things have happened. People could run into that several times in a year if they time it just perfect. From the hospital, you're discharged, and you may want to go to skilled nursing, and it's a wonderful place to be. You get your meals brought to you, you got cable TV, and the physical therapist comes in every day and beats you up. But that skilled nursing facility, the government loves it, and they say they'll pick up the first 20 days for no charge. You can even stay there for longer, up to 100 nights. But that additional 80 nights that you might be staying, there is a copayment. This year, that copayment, $176 per night for those additional nights. So that could get spendy. And note, once again, we said before, Medicare doesn't pay for long-term care. After 100 nights, if you can't get out of skilled nursing in 100 nights, government says game over. Now it's all on you, and that's pretty expensive. We talked about a world of partial sentences and half-truths and floating asterisks. Well, there's an asterisk right there. We see this, and what that means is something needs to happen for you to get that benefit, and it's critical to understand the rules of engagement. To get the skilled nursing benefit, you need to be admitted into the hospital for 3 midnights, okay? These days, there's 2 ways to get into the hospital. One is you're being admitted. There's a diagnosis. There's something there. We're going to find it. We're going to fix it. But the other way that you can get into the hospital these days and spend the night is under observational status, another key term. Observation means you're never officially admitted. You don't have to stay, but the doctor recommends it highly because we know it's a lot better for you to be 50 feet from the emergency room than a 50-minute ambulance ride. So doctors use it as I think, a bit of a cover. They want you to stay there. If you go home and something wrong happens, well, I hate to say I told you so. But those observational stays, Medicare pays for the observational stay, but the observational stay does not tick the 3 nights necessary to get that skilled nursing benefit. And this is a very important part of any kind of health care. Defend yourself at all times. What are we doing? Why are we doing it? Who's paying for it? And what are my options for coverage? In that world, we've seen people who've clearly been in the hospital 3-4 nights, go to skilled nursing, check in, believing everything's going to be covered, only to find out that 2 of those nights were observational, 2 of those nights were admitted, did not tick the 3 nights necessary to get the skilled nursing benefit. So our motto is no surprises. That home health service, wonderful, wonderful benefit, 0 charge to you as long as we have a note from our doctor and we're using an approved provider. But remember, that's just very short-term, major stuff. They're not picking up a gallon of milk on the way over or helping you, with the mail. They're just there to get in and get out, get you back on your feet. And with hospice, I put down 5%, but that's hardly fair. Medicare picks up almost everything in the world of hospice, whether it's in a freestanding facility or the privacy of your own home. But there can be a very small copayment for the medications you take to remain comfortable before you pass away. So there's A, no premium, but exposure on our facilities. Let's talk about B. If there's one word for B, it's services. All the services that you utilize are going to come up under Part B. And that's why it does have a premium, because this is the lion's share of what we're going to come into contact with. The base premium is $144.60 per person per month. Everything in the world of Medicare is done individually, so that we can build a separate program for you and a separate program for your spouse that's customized to what they need it to be. But this Part B, this is all of your services. So all of the doctors that you see and all of the specialists that you see, whether you saw them in the hospital or in their office, they're billing up under B. There might have been an anesthesiologist one time, knocked you out so a surgeon could operate on you. But wait a second, that happened in the hospital. Yeah, but that hospital charge, that's the facility, that's the gurney, the bright lights. That's not the people who are working on you. You might consider Medicare Part B, all of your labor charges are coming up under Part B. All of your lab work, everything from a blood test to a biopsy, all of your diagnostic testing, that's the expensive alphabet soup. EKG, EEG, MRI, CAT scan, X-ray, stress test, mammogram, all that is going to come up under B. Get out of the hospital, maybe you need a walker or a wheelchair, or maybe in the hospital you got a brand new knee or a pacemaker. Or maybe you've got a CPAP machine, or you've got lancets and test strips for your diabetes. All that stuff is billing up under B. It's called DME, durable medical equipment. Physical therapy is going to come up under B. The ambulance that takes us to the emergency room. All of your outpatient services, that could be a cataract or a colonoscopy, or for God's sakes, they're doing full knee replacements now on an outpatient basis. It's hard to fathom. That would have kept our parents in the hospital for probably several days and skilled nursing for a couple of weeks after that. And now you're walking out, maybe limping out at the end of the night. It's amazing. And the last part of this B world is clinical RX. And these are medications, the definition of which is they're delivered in a clinical setting. So it could be outpatient. It could be in a doctor's office. It could be in the hospital. But this is typically the god-awful stuff. Chemotherapy, kidney dialysis, radiation treatment, nasty things, big ticket things are billing up under your Medicare Part B benefit. These are different than the maintenance medications that you're getting through the Part D drug prescription program. That's the stuff you're getting at Jewel Osco for high blood pressure or Walgreens for cholesterol. This is big ticket stuff, and Medicare's got your back because it bills up under Part B. In that world, you always want to make fully informed decisions on any medication that the doctor is suggesting you take. Sometimes you may find that there's the ability to actually get these pretty heavy-duty things. There's actually chemotherapy that you can take in the privacy of your own home. These pills are not cheap, as you might imagine, but you're going to go down to Walgreens and you're going to use your Part D drug program, and you're going to be able to sit at home and do your own thing. And that's a decision you need to make, but you also need to understand financially that can have serious ramifications, because the more expensive the drug, the more likely you are to potentially fall into this thing called the coverage gap or the donut hole that all Part D programs have. We'll talk more about that later, but we always want to know what our options are with these medications. Sometimes it's worth financially having it delivered in the doctor's office. So here's Part B. It's got a premium, and it also has exposure, but the exposure here is different. Part A kind of has a pay-as-you-go. Do this, pay that, do this, pay that. The Part B has a different structure. It has all these services have an annual deductible, one time annually. Once you've met that deductible, then Medicare is going to step in and start sharing costs with you on a percentage basis. And here's what that looks like. The annual deductible on all of these services one time is $198. And if that doesn't blow your mind, I don't know what would. I'm on the Affordable Care Act. I carry a $7,000 deductible. I can't see a doctor for less than $350. Here, $198 is your annual deductible. I don't think, well, you wouldn't find a doctor for $198. I don't think you could find a blood panel that retails for under $200. But that's it. The first $198, you're paying that up front, and then Medicare is going to step in and start splitting bills with you. They're going to pick up 80 cents on the dollar. They're going to hold you responsible for 20 cents on the dollar. This is amazing coverage for $144.60, but it's even better than that, because once you've paid your annual deductible, and you could call it that little dash right there, Medicare takes their negotiated discount. Their discount would make a loan shark blush. When the cardiologist tells you, well, I charge $350, Medicare says you're adorable, we pay $80. You're responsible for 20% of the $80. So you're into a cardiologist visit for $16, $18, $20. It's amazing coverage, and mostly driven by the fact that you're paying 20% after Medicare has taken their negotiated discount. In and of itself, this is amazing coverage. And you say, well, gosh, how do they do it for $144.60? They don't. They're dropping north of $850 a month on each of us. They're making up the difference with tax dollars. That's why the taxes keep going up. They ask you for a minimal contribution, that $144.60. And that's one of the reasons why we see that IRMA charge, that bump for higher income. They're trying to find dollars to keep this thing afloat, and they look to the richer of us to be able to afford that. In this world, it's amazing coverage. In this world, you'd want to know it's an unlimited benefit. If you need 5 knee replacements in the next year, they will pay for 5 knee replacements. But the caution is that with the unlimited benefit, with just Medicare A and B, you have unlimited exposure. What does that mean? That means that on those 5 knee replacements, every 61 days, they're going to want their 1408 again. And if you stay longer in skilled nursing, they're going to want their 176 a night. Sincerely hope you never need a hospice stay. $198 is frankly a joke, but that 20%, that'll grab your attention, even after their negotiated discount. We all have friends and family, they've been in the hospital for a very short period of time, and they've rung up tens of thousands of dollars in bill, and no stopping it, no stopping it. So although it's an unlimited benefit, it's unlimited exposure, and that's why we're going to look to pick up additional coverage in addition to Part A and Part B. Robin.
Yes. So I just want to underscore something that I think is relevant and important that we get asked about a lot this time of year, because people who continue to stay on employer coverage that is qualified coverage and allows them to delay their enrollment into Medicare, they tend to revisit that this time of year when their employer comes to them or their spouse's employer comes to them and says, hey, do you want to sign up for this plan again? And I cannot underscore enough that Medicare negotiated discount that David described is taken on Part B services is quite significant. And you really have to look at, in totality, not just your premium expense for Medicare A and B, if you have any premium expense for A, but also what you currently pay in deductibles and in coinsurance amounts and in max out-of-pocket amounts for an employer-sponsored plan. Because when you look at things all in, it's really hard to beat that Medicare deductible of $198. And certainly when you're responsible for 20% coinsurance, that's probably not unlike any other coverage that you might currently have, but your deductible to get there is a lot lower, and you're paying 20% off of a significant negotiated discount by Medicare. So definitely look beyond premium expense when you're trying to make some evaluations if you've continued to avail yourself of coverage past age 65.
Yeah. Generally speaking, you'll find the Medicare is phenomenal if you're running into your annual deductible, and most employer plans, they're better than what I've got on the Affordable Care Act, but still, when you look at the deductible, and then usually after the deductible, just like it is here, there's cost sharing after you've hit your deductible, but usually on an employer plan, that deductible is going to be $2,000, $3,000. And then they're going to go 80-20 with you, but it'll max out, it'll firewall off, it'll stop at usually somewhere between $3,000 to $5,000. If you're bumping into that, then this can be much more attractive because you pay that $198. Yes, you've got the 80/20, but we have the ability to make that go away. Here, we put Medicare into primary position. And if we're on this track called Original Medicare, you really need to start to kind of check what you've learned in 65 years or more at the door. Because now we're entering a new world, the world of Medicare, which I would put forth to you is way better. There's way more competition, but better than that, you've got a new sheriff in town. It's called Medicare, and they run the show, and they keep these companies on the straight and narrow. They're constantly looking over their shoulder. In the world of Original Medicare, what happens is in the under 65 market, he's got Blue Cross, she's got Humana, I've got Golden Rule, what have you. But when you come to Medicare, it's a gear shift, and now it's a tectonic shift where Medicare moves into primary position. Medicare is the one that calls the shots. Medicare is your network of doctors and hospitals, and it's the largest PPO that you could ever have because with Original Medicare, you get access to any doctor, any hospital, anywhere in the United States. They take Medicare, you're in. Well, that's good. That's fat. It's wonderful. But again, not complete. So what are we going to do about that exposure? Well, what we're going to want to do is start to offset that 20% with a Medicare supplement. We call them supplements because they supplement what Original Medicare does. We also call them Medigap plans. Just to confuse you, we call the same thing two different names. And I've seen arguments. I sit back in stunned amazement arguing what's better, a Medicare supplement or a Medigap plan. It's the same thing, but people don't realize that. But these are packages of benefits brought to us by private insurance companies, but they've got to play by Medicare rules. Medicare says, okay, big insurance company, you want to sell these products, you're going to do it our way. And the first thing they have to encounter are the three big rules when you first activate your Medicare Part B. That could be at 65 or years down the road when you finally ready to retire. But when you activate that Medicare Part B, all the companies that offer these supplements have to offer you guaranteed issue. No medical questions, no underwriting, no pre-existing conditions, no riders, no waivers. You could be in an iron lung smoking 5 packs of cigarettes a day and they got to take you. That's rule number one. Rule number two, you pick one of these programs from one of the 39 companies that want your business, they can never drop you. You're theirs and they're yours till the day you die or we find a better alternative further down the road. And rule number three, which is critically important, you can never be singled out for a rate increase. Your claims as an individual are shared by everyone that's in the same program you have. And that leads us to safety in numbers. And we'll talk about that in a second. But all of these supplements and all these companies that want your business, Medicare says, okay, boys, here you go. Here's the field of play. This is the field of Medicare supplements. And this is where people start to get a little wobbly. I kind of got the A thing and I understand the B thing but why are there 10 different programs? Well, because people have different needs. And this is where it gets, frankly, fun for Robin and I, because now we get to customize a package of benefits for what you want it to be. It's not a one size fits all. We just went through this stuff, benefits. What does Medicare cover? Well, a lot. But does it cover everything? No. So Medicare allows 10 different packages of benefits to come to the market. But Medicare says what these packages of benefits are, not the insurance companies. Wait a second, you're telling me that G from Blue Cross Blue Shield is similar to G from Mutual of Omaha? No, not similar, identical. Medicare says what G is. Yeah, but wait a second, I know my doctor takes Blue Cross Blue Shield. Does he even take Mutual of Omaha? No. Does your doctor take Medicare? Medicare is primary. That's the only question you need to ask. And whether you got your supplement from Bankers Life or Forethought or Heartland or Aetna or Cigna or AARP, any of them, they're all doing the same thing, using the same network. Well, then what's the difference? The price can vary dramatically. Not only the price, but the track record of the companies that you want to do business with are critically important. Smaller companies will allure you with a very sharp rate, but you may find yourself seduced and abandoned because down the road, when those rates start going up, a very small risk pool that has 2 heart attacks and 1 kidney transplant leaves everybody sharing in those costs. We like the companies with big, huge risk pools. They're more modest in their rate increases, and it's a better place for you to be and certainly something to research. 10 different programs to choose from, but really there's 3 that have driven the conversation here traditionally. If you circled F and G and N, I would say over the last 10 years, you would capture at least 90% of all supplements sold fall into one of those three buckets. This F, for the longest time, was very popular because it was very simplistic. F, a package of benefits that as long as you wrote that check out every month, F was the one that would make all of your exposure go away. All that A stuff we talked about and the 20% and even the 198, F paid for it all. So strong, I mean, unlike any coverage you've ever had before in your life, unless maybe you were a member of Congress at one point in time. But this F has gone away now, and the reason is because it was so overpriced and so top-heavy and so expensive that even the government and the insurance companies agreed we're no longer marketing F to new enrollees. But you said I could never be dropped. No, you can. If you've got F right now, they can never drop you. If you turn 65 before January 1st of this year, you could even still get it. They'll grandfather you in. But the problem with F has always been it's so expensive because it's so comprehensive, and the more comprehensive, the more expensive. And this F has really fallen out of favor because G has been a better value for years. Personally, I'm really sad to see F go away because I've been beaten up on F for years. G is the better value if you will just take a brief moment, deep breath. I know this can get really emotional, but let's look at it logically from a financial perspective. If right now you're 66 years of age as a female, we can still get you the F, and that F is going to run you about $165 a month. 165 to make all that exposure go, well, 165 plus you need the Part B, that's 144. We're still going to need a drug program, but it would be easy enough to justify that F would make your life so simple. You'll never see a bill, no deductible, no coinsurance, nothing. Go for those 5 knee replacements, never see a bill. But the G has been a better value for years because G, that does almost everything F does. Wait a second. There's one thing, one empty box. You're going to reach into your pocket and pay for something. F pays for it, but F overcharges you for simply paying that Part B deductible. We said that was this year $198. So if you put 198 in that little box right there, that's what's called a deductible. Just like your automobile insurance or your homeowner's insurance, deductibles drive premiums down because the insurance companies like it when you're taking a little bit of risk up front. In this world where we could get that 66-year-old female, that F for $165, we can get her that G for about $115. That's $50 a month savings. That's $600 a year. So the other way to look at it is that F is charging her $600 a year. And what is she getting for that $600 a year? They're paying the $198 deductible. It is not a good value. And the other problem that we see on the horizon with F, remember, you can never be singled out for a rate increase. Your claims are shared with everyone that's in your risk pool. And what's traditionally made these supplements work so well is we've got so many baby boomers turning 65. The number traditionally has been that gets thrown around 10,000 baby boomers a day turning 65. No, not in 1955. We're at the absolute peak of the baby boomers, 13,000 baby boomers a day turning 65. They're jumping into these risk pools. And as a general rule of thumb, they're in pretty darn good shape. And they're in these pools and they're paying claims and sharing claims with everyone that's in there. The younger, the healthier, offsetting the costs for the older and the sicker. It's worked brilliantly, especially with the big companies, because they're constantly adding new blood to share in these claims. But what's going to happen with F? They've turned off the faucet. We're not going to see any newbies showing up buying the F supplement. That pool, whatever company you got it from, that pool by definition now is getting smaller and older and older and smaller. And as they get older, they get sicker. And those claims shared among an ever-diminishing pool of older, sicker people, those claims are going to go through the roof. And if you got F right now, I would seriously like to talk to you about moving to G. It would make a lot of sense. And you'll still find your friends and family, they love you, and they'll tell you, well, we've got F. You got to get F. We never see a bill. The reason they never see a bill is there's a giant sucking sound coming out of their checking account every month to pay for this ever-accelerating cost. Now, all supplements will go up every year. Anybody who tells you different is giving you a load of hooey. But we tell our clients it would be conservative and appropriate to figure that every number we talk about here tonight goes up at least 5 to 8% per year, every year. So even in the best of times, when mom and dad took that F years ago, because the agent told them it was the best thing going, what was the best thing for the agent? Because it's the most expensive supplement you can buy. It pays the biggest commission. And in that world, they've been on F. And, after a few years, it's not $165 anymore. We'll meet with folks in their 80s. He's paying $360 a month. She's paying $340 a month, and it's chewing them up. It's way too expensive, and there's better options for coverage. G would be one of those better options. Drive down your premiums because you accept a deductible. The next step on the hit parade would be N as in Nancy. Nancy says you'll agree to more cost sharing and thereby drive down your premiums. N is very similar to what most people have coming off their group health insurance. N says deductible and co-payments. Well, what's the deductible? The same silly $198. And after you've paid that $198, you also agree to co-payments for doctor visits and if you go to the emergency room. And that's down here at the bottom of this page. With N, you would, after paying the $198, additional doctor visits, you agree $20 to see a doctor, $20 to see a specialist, $50 if you go to the emergency room. And truth be told, the way it reads here, a copayment of up to $20. Why does it say it that way? Because by the time Medicare's finished taking their negotiated discount and then you're responsible for 20%, many of these doctor visits are coming through at less than $20. So that's how good N could be. And that's going to take that female 66-year-old from about 165 to about 115. She'll come in here at about $90 a month because you're agreeing to additional copayments. And you got to look at this from a rational perspective. Most people get very scared here, and it's easy to push clients into buying too much insurance. And many of the people that we see further years down the road, they bought way too much insurance initially. But if you look at just the difference between the N and the G, well, at $90 ballpark, many companies want your business, and $115 ballpark, many companies want your business. But just in that example, that's a $25 a month difference. $25 times 12 months, that's $300 difference a year, year one in premium. Well, $300, what's the difference? They got doctor co-payments. Even if it was $20 per co-payment, you'd have to see the doctor more than 15 times in the next year for that G to be of value. This N can make a lot of sense for a lot of people. And remember, that's a $300 spread day one. As we go through this cycle of 5 to 8%, 5 to 8%, the G is going to run away faster than the N. And what do you say about a risk pool of people who have co-payments to see a doctor? Maybe they don't go to the doctor a lot. True that. And that means that you'd be surrounding yourself, in theory, with healthier people who are willing to accept a co-payment to see the doctor, and that could help keep costs down as we age. There's also one other end of the spectrum. If F picked up everything 100%, G has a $198 deductible and then everything's covered. But then G also comes in, if you see that little asterisk there, G comes in a high deductible format. Medicare calls it a high deductible, but it's actually not a high deductible, it's a maximum out-of-pocket. And that's a big difference, because if it was a deductible of $2,340, you see that right here. If it was a true deductible, you'd have to pay all that up front, but that's not what it is. You pay your $198, that's the annual deductible for Part B. But then remember, the cardiologist says, I charge $350. Medicare says we pay $80. You're responsible for 20% of the $80. That's $16 goes towards the $2340. The cardiologist says, I don't like the way this looks. You need to get an MRI. You go over to Edward Hospital, they'll tell you an MRI is $2,600. Medicare says, we don't pay $2,600 for an MRI. We pay like $600. You're responsible for 20% of the $600, and that $120 goes in the bucket towards the $2340. Not everyone's cup of tea, but this higher level of exposure is going to drive that female turning 66 from 165 to 115 to 90. She can be here in the 40s, $40 a month. And not everyone's cup of tea, but I would tell you personal experience, I carry a $7,000 deductible. My wife has a $7,000 deductible. It's been that way for 6-7 years now. To think of a world where I could have a $2,340 out-of-pocket max, That's kind of interesting. And we're doing more and more business here with this high deductible. Most agents won't even talk to you about it because they don't want to sell you a $40 insurance program. They want to stick you in that G or that F and have you pay more. And these are all good. They're all wonderful. They all have fabulous benefits. But remember, everyone gives all the credit in the world to their supplement. And they'll tell you about how they've got Blue Cross or AARP or Cigna or Aetna, what have you. But the fact of the matter is, your coverage is Medicare. Medicare is primary. The supplements are picking it up on the backside to protect you from the things that original Medicare doesn't cover. Robin.
So Medicare is so flexible, and that's why David and I love it, because throughout the aging process, you can tweak these things. And we know this initial decision when you first come to Medicare is critically important to you, and taking that rational assessment of your needs is so important. But we do get a number of questions about changing these plans, okay? Because Medicare does let you change them, but there's timing to that. So a lot of times people will ask us, can I change my supplement during this annual enrollment period and not be asked questions about my health? Well, if that annual enrollment period tends to overlap the first 6 months you came to Medicare and off of other coverage, then you won't be asked health questions because you'll still be in your open enrollment period. But the annual enrollment period has nothing to do with you having to ask health questions or not. You will be asked health questions anytime outside of that 6-month window that you want to change your Medicare supplement, go forward. However, know that you can change it any month out of the year, because supplements, unlike Advantage plans, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, and drug plans, which we're going to talk about next, those run on a calendar year basis. So supplements you pay month to month, you can come in and out of them at any time, but your ability to move flexibly across this chart throughout your lifetime is going to be predicated on your health once you're past that 6-month window. And that is true even if you're moving from a plan G to a plan N, for example, within the same company. And quite often, as David mentioned, we'll see premiums go up as people age on these things, and sometimes they'll just want to take another whack at the piñata. They'll want to shop around and see if they can get the same coverage for a better price from another carrier, because it's a highly competitive space and the coverage is identical because Medicare is defining these benefits, and we can certainly help people do that. But at that point, they are going to be subject to answering health questions. There's only one carrier in this state that won't ever ask health questions. And we feel lucky that we have that option, because when people need to move into a Medigap plan and they're challenged around certain health circumstances, we've got an option for them. But that's not the case in the other 49 states in the US. So certainly flexibility here, but you do have to know timing, and certainly you want to do your best shopping around when you first come.
Yeah, and maybe didn't make that clear enough, but when you first activate that Part B, you've got 6 months before you activate B, 6 months after you activate B. They got to take you with no underwriting and no medical questions. Eventually, that 6 months goes away. And what you'll find then, to Robin's point, you can change these every month of the year. But when you're outside of that initial 1-year window, every one of the companies, save one, will ask you medical questions. And there's not a lot of blessings that we have in Illinois, but one of them is that we've got a supplemental company out there that will take that 94-year-old with emphysema and not even ask him any medical questions, allow him to enroll in any of these programs. But again, what would you think about a health insurance company that doesn't ask any medical questions? Isn't that kind of crazy? Well, it's a great tool for us to have, but you'd also want to know that typically their rates are not the sharpest when we're coming out of the chute, but it's sure nice to know we've got them in the bullpen warming up.
So we did get asked, David, directly, who is that company? And while we can't mention carriers, if we're asked a direct question, we're going to answer it. It's Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Correct. They'll take anybody at any point in time. So if you've got mom or dad that are in F and they want to get out, we can get them out. And even if they're already with Blue Cross, we do a lot of business with that company. But even if they're already with that company, they should be talking to that company about downshifting. Why wouldn't they be in the G? Why wouldn't they be in the N? Had a couple just last open enrollment, both in their 80s, dropping north of $600 a month on their F. And you do what's called a needs analysis. It turns out he went to the doctor 5 times last year. She went 4 times, and you've got F. You've got the all-you-can-eat buffet. And at over $600 a month for the two of them, they're dropping $7,000 a year to get to 9 doctor visits. Makes no sense at all. The G might even be considered overkill in that situation. The N could make perfect sense because they're just not going to the doctor enough. And in this world, many people are overinsured. That's one of the things that we really don't like, is seeing people pay way too much, because we know these prices are going to go up as they age. A and B good, but A and B not complete. We pick up a supplement, and dad may like the N, mom may want the G, and that's fine too. We can do that. It's usually pretty smart to keep that with the same company, because there are household discounts. If you both sign up with the same company, you'll get 5 or 7 or 12% off your rates. And that can be a really good way to save money. But we're not complete here, because we need a drug program. We got 28 of them that want your business, and all 28 of them got to play by Medicare rules. And whether you're looking at a freestanding drug program or a drug program that's bound into the chassis of an Advantage program, all of these drug programs got to play by Medicare rules. Medicare is the one who calls the shots. All of the drug programs are available to you when you first come to Medicare. They're also all available to you every year during this annual election period. People think they can change their supplement every year guaranteed. No, no, no. You only get one shot where you're guaranteed, 6 months before B, 6 months after B. But the drug programs every year come up for renewal, and it's wonderful. We'll see this in total on October 1st. They finally have to show us their cards, and we can see what they're all doing. But on these drug programs, you don't have to take a drug program. But if you don't, the government's not going to forget about you, and you would not even be aware of it if you didn't make fully informed decisions. But somewhere out there, there's a penalty, and that penalty is going to keep increasing each and every month that you go without a drug program. And we've seen this too many times to count, where the thought process is, well, I'm not taking any meds. And any meds that I was going to take, they're going to be generics. I'm not going to worry about it. I'll get on the Julasco. But the problem is, people will wait to get this drug program until it's too late. And just had one not even 2 weeks ago. The son is helping mom, who lost her husband a couple of years ago. But when time came for them to enroll, mom's now 90. Dad said, we're not going to get a drug program. That's stupid money. I'm not going to spend that. We're not taking any meds. And even if they're going to be generic, well, that's good. But now here's mom, and here's the doctor saying, you need to start taking this miracle drug. It's called Eliquis. It's a blood thinner. It's incredible. It's phenomenal. It's a miracle. It's $500 a month. And now she's come to the conclusion that she needs a drug program, because $500 at retail, we have drug programs where she can get that Eliquis for $30 a month, maybe less. And that's really tantalizing. But she's going to have to crawl her way to the annual election period. And yep, we can get her a drug program. This is great. So we'll be able to get her a drug program. It won't start till January 1st, because the drug programs operate on a calendar year. So January 1st, she can get her drug program. And the really good drug program this year for Eliquis is $22.80 a month. Cheap enough if you're getting that Eliquis for $30 a month. But the problem is, she's now going to find that that late enrollment penalty, which is negligible, this year I want to say it's 36 cents a month for every month that you didn't have coverage. Well, the drug programs came out in 2006, and she's now 90. But that means 14 years of penalties. Round up, 36 cents a month is about $5 a year. But she's had 14 years of not having a drug program. So that means in addition to her premium, she's going to pay a $70 penalty. And that's not a one-time penalty. That's every month in perpetuity. She's going to pay that $70. And we see it where people, they always think they're going to outsmart the government. And usually when you think you're going to outsmart the government, you find the government waiting for you 3-4 miles down the road, and their hand is out. And now she's going to pay more for that drug program than she had to, because she didn't take it when it was first offered. And that's really important. And I could understand Dad's thought process if I could get inside of his head. In 2006, these drug programs were $40, $50. And it could make financial sense not to take the drug program, but now she's getting burned on it. Well, she's saved 14 years of premiums. That should soothe her a little bit. But in a world where the drug programs used to be $40, $50, $60, now competition, capitalism kept on the rails works beautifully. robust competition and complete transparency. 5 years ago, we broke the $20 mark. Drug programs for under $20 a month. Phenomenal. Avoid the penalty. Have it there if something comes out of left field. And for under 20 bucks, this last year, we went under the $15 mark. We've got 3 programs under $15 a month. That's incredible, phenomenal, great. We've been told that this next year, we'll see it on October 1st, but apparently there will be one drug program this next year that's under $10 a month. This is how capitalism works. All of these companies beating each other over the head to win your business, and it works great. And that's another reason why every year you want to look during the annual election period. All of the companies that want your business, they got to play by Medicare rules, and Medicare establishes the master formulary. That means the menu that all these companies can choose to compete. Some companies have gone after generics with a vengeance. Some have gone after brand names. Some have gone after mail order, or some are only good at Walgreens or Jewel Osco. There's all sorts of parameters for the competition. But this year, we open at $13.20 a month, great for generics. The most expensive drug program this year is $135.50 a month. Well, as you might imagine, that's for pretty dread circumstance, but there's people who find value there based upon the god-awful stuff that they're taking. But in that world, the beauty is that we can all see what they're doing. And Medicare forces them all onto a level field of play where they need to tier their drugs. If you remember your employer plan, you'd probably remember that it had 3 tiers of drugs. There was generic, there was brand, and there was specialty. Medicare forces these guys into a 5-tier structure. It leads to more competition, more specialization, and drives costs down. One company may have your drug as a tier 3. Another plan may have it as a tier 2. Another plan may not have it at all. And that's why we want to look and make sure that you're in the best program. If you're already in Medicare, keep your eyes peeled. By now, you should have received your annual notice of change. Read it, please, because in there, they're going to tell you the premium changed, the drug formulary changed, the drug you had last year that was a tier 3 is now a tier 2, or the drug you had last year that was a tier 3 is now a tier 4, and that can get expensive. On these preferred generics, these are the least expensive generic drugs, things like metformin or atorvastatin or lisinopril. You're going to have a very low copayment because it's a very inexpensive drug. But they aren't tracking your copayment, they're tracking the value of the medication. Tier 2, these are newer generic drugs, recently came to market. Crestor is a good example. Crestor recently went generic. Now it's called rosuvastatin calcium. Godsend. The price came way, way down. But again, it's a newer generic, so there's a higher copayment. But they aren't tracking your copayment, they're tracking the retail value of the drug. Tier 3, these are drugs that are advertised on TV. You'd know the names, and it's advertised on TV, so it's more expensive. Tier 4, these are drugs that are advertised on TV by famous people. So Phil Mickelson is getting his pound of flesh. He's getting a nice little kickback from the pharmaceutical company, but these are even more expensive because they're brand new. These are miracle drugs, but they ain't cheap. And then tier 5, God, you don't even want to consider. Tier 5 are the god-awful things. AIDS medications, anti-rejection drugs for transplants, big hitters, chemotherapy that you could take in the privacy of your own home. Wait a second, chemotherapy that I could take in the privacy of my own home? Yeah, no, there's meds. You can go down to Walgreens, and it's going to be a really high copayment, but more important than the high copayment, it's going to have a very high retail value. So that's where you might want to consider having that drug administered in a doctor's office. Not always the case, but one of those things that you always want to ask about, because these tier 5 drugs, these are things like Enroll, where the drug itself is a $1,200 or $1,300 a month drug. You'll get a much better price on it, but even though you're paying $150 for your med, they aren't tracking the $150 copayment. They're tracking the retail value of your drug. Why is that? Because all of these drug programs have 3 stages of coverage. Whether you buy it independently or you buy it in an Advantage program, they all have 3 stages of coverage. And you move through those stages of coverage, and things can get more expensive based upon the retail value of your drugs. Most of the drug programs have a deductible. For example, that $13.20 program, the standard deductible this year is $435. That first Eliquis, that's a $500 drug. You're going to pay off the $435. But after you've paid off the deductible, you find yourself in the initial stage of coverage, and life is actually pretty good. You're paying a premium for your drug program, and lo and behold, you're getting Eliquis for $25 a month. That's a deal. You're getting a $500 drug for $25 a month. But they're not tracking what you're paying. They're tracking the retail value of your medications. And this year, if the retail value went over $4,020 at retail, you would then move from this initial stage of coverage, you get bumped into the coverage gap or the donut hole. And you've heard talk about it. Why is it such a bad thing? Well, because you now have a much higher percentage of cost sharing than you had before. Here you're paying $25 for a $500 drug, but after 8 months of a $500 drug, you have fallen into the coverage gap, and now you're responsible to pay 25% of the retail value. So that, on a $500 drug, that'd be $125 a month. You went from $25 a month to $125 a month, and that's because your retail value of your meds exceeded the threshold, and you moved into the coverage gap. And we get that phone call several times now. October, November is really when people will start to call. My neighbor said I should talk to you because you're the Medicare guy. You know about this stuff. Oh, what's going on? Well, I've been going to Walgreens, and every month my drugs have been $80. And I went there last weekend to pick up my meds. They want $457 for my meds. And I said, well, it sounds to me like you probably fell into the coverage gap, to which they always respond, I can't have fallen in the coverage gap. I've only spent $800. No, sir. It's not what you've spent. It's the retail value of the drugs that you've acquired. And they send you updates every month. You'll know if you're willing to read and stay engaged, they'll tell you exactly where you are in your coverage gap stages. And we want to be really careful here, because when you fall into the coverage gap, things get much more expensive. And the irony, most people don't fall into the gap. Those that do usually fall in like September, October, November, and they get clobbered in the donut hole for a few months, and then everything resets January 1. You can get out of jail, you can get out of the coverage gap, but you've got to spend close to $6,000 to get out of the coverage gap into this third stage called catastrophic. And that is a fuzzy lollipop. That's a silver lining to a very dark cloud, or a pot of gold at the end of a crappy rainbow. You will see rate reductions. You'll drop down to 5% co-payments for your meds, but that usually lasts for about an hour and a half, and here comes January 1st all over again, and the whole thing resets. So you've got to be aware of the fact that every year we can check these drug programs. Every year the formularies change, or maybe your meds changed, or maybe just capitalism has driven prices down. And they all have these 3 stages of coverage. So it's pretty simple. All you do is you've got 28 different drug programs, you've got 28 different formularies, you've got 28 different premiums, and all you need to do is call every one of those 28 companies and spend about an hour. No, you'd go here to Medicare.gov, your new best friend in the world, and we're going to pull back the curtain, because the beauty of the system is robust competition and complete transparency. The emperor has no clothes. We can see what everybody's doing and what the best program is for you. Call 1-800-MEDICARE. They'll run it for you. This isn't that tough to navigate. You could do it yourself. There are SHIP counselors. These are volunteers that work at community centers. They'll walk you through it. Call Robin, call me. We have people, we'll help you out and figure out what the best drug program is for you, and are you in the right supplement? But in that world, we're going to punch in some information, and here's a result. Here's one of these reports that we get. This particular program is $28 a month. We don't see that here. And these are the meds that this particular person is taking. Well, there's atorvastatin, wonderful, 0 copay, because it's a tier 1 drug. There's lisinopril, wonderful, 0 copay, but both of them have retail costs. And there's Eliquis or Xarelto or a Spiriva inhaler or Advair. These tier 3, tier 4 drugs are going to have a much higher retail. This particular program has the $435 deductible, so he's going to knock that out pretty quickly. But once he's paid off that, wow, look at that, $25 a month. That's a beautiful thing. For a $462 drug, that's why I've got a drug program, and I'm paying $28 a month to get real value. In this world, you want to always have a reality check. We want to know what you're taking, but then you also want to understand that there are tools that you can be using that help drive costs down. And one of the tools that we use, if you're not hip to it, goodrx.com. You've seen the commercials, maybe you already have the card. All that is is a clearinghouse that shows us every local pharmacy and what they would be charging. And what you'll find in the world of Medicare, they're slow to pick up generic drugs. They get there, but they're usually available at retailers before they show up on your Part D drug program. And here's a good example. This ProAir is still considered as a brand name drug on this drug program. But you'd find that if you went to GoodRx, the ProAir, the patents on these inhalers have started to run out. And now the generics are coming and the prices come down quite a bit. Here you only see the brand name drug. It's worth $66 and you can get it for $25. But if you went and looked at GoodRx, you'd see now that the albuterol sulfate is the generic. It's available at like $12. So you wouldn't even be paying that in the initial stage where you're paying off your deductible, and you'd be paying less than you would be paying on the drug program. We always want to make sure that you're getting maximum value by using all the options. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to confuse. You don't have to do any of this. Just keep filling out the checks and mailing them in and never take a look at it. Don't worry about it. Yeah, the price went up. What's the big deal? The big deal is over time, you can save a fortune if you spend just a few minutes each year looking at your drug program. Please understand the difference between a preferred pharmacy and a participating pharmacy. All of these different plans have different retail alliances. Used to be that mail order was always your best option. Mail order is not your best option anymore. The retailers have figured out this is a wonderful way to get people into the stores, and brick and mortar is dying. So you'll see a very different landscape depending on the retailers that you look at. We'll have people that say, I'm going to use Walgreens, I only want to go to Walgreens. Okay, well then we're not looking at 28 drug programs, we're looking at the 8 that feature Walgreens. But could you walk across the street to Jewel Osco and save $700 next year? That usually gets their attention. And people will pick the right drug program and go to the wrong retailer. That's crazy. People think these pharmacies are like gas stations, right? They're all the same price. No, they're not. And they've all established different retail parameters. And what you'll find now is that the grocery stores have gotten very competitive because they know when you show up and they tell you it'll be about 10, 15 minutes, you go buy other stuff. And they love you for that. And that's one of the reasons why they're very competitive on this field of play. Robin, help.
One of the things that people ask us quite often is, shouldn't I just get the drug plan from the company that I'm getting my supplement from because it's easier? Well, it might be easier, but it's not necessarily to your financial benefit. Quite often, I would say 9 times out of 10, David and I will run somebody's medications through Medicare.gov, and we will find that a completely different insurance company is better suited to their coverage and their needs under Medicare Part D. Because you have to remember, the way to pick the best Medicare Part D plan for you is to base it on the prescriptions you're currently filling. And so that oftentimes isn't going to be with the same company that maybe you got your supplement from. And there's certainly no advantage. It's not like the insurance company is going to give you any kind of discount for doing that.
Right.
The other thing we get asked quite often is if someone has Medicare Part A turned on, which could be a trigger to have to get drug coverage, but they continue to avail themselves of a spouse's employer coverage that includes drug coverage, you certainly do not need to get Medicare Part D. You can delay your enrollment in Part D just like you delayed your enrollment in Part B. But if you're an over 65 insured on that plan, whoever the employer is, the HR department or the benefits administrator, they should be sending you a letter that states that their drug coverage under that plan is at least as equivalent to Medicare Part D. And that letter is going to be something that when you finally do enroll in a drug plan, you're going to need to produce to the carrier of the drug plan so they don't accrue a late enrollment penalty when you come to D. But it is the one area where David and I do see people overspend. They make that one decision, stick it in a kitchen drawer and never look at it again. But it's also the thing that tends to be the most volatile for people as it relates to their health. People go on and off medications all the time. The drug companies are always moving, brands to generic status year over year. And certainly the insurance companies are changing the plans. And so looking at those annual notice of change, asking yourself what has changed with respect to my, maintenance meds, my regular filled meds, and making an appropriate adjustment is important. The other thing that we get asked a lot, and nobody asked it tonight, but I'm going to bring it forward because I think it's important, is a lot of times people say, okay, well, I have to pick a plan and then I'm locked in for a year. But what happens if that Eliquis or Xarelto gets prescribed mid-plan year and the plan I chose doesn't cover it? Your doctor can write a formulary exception that will allow the insurance company to carry that med as if it was covered under your plan at the tier 4 level. So unfortunately, you will be paying a higher amount for it, but at least you won't be paying full retail value. But they'll only do that until the end of that plan year because they know you have the annual enrollment period between October 15th and December 7th to take another crack at getting a plan that's now going to cover, these additional medications for yourself. So you do have to be somewhat accountable and responsible when you're in Medicare Part D to paying attention to that. But certainly as the years go by, if your medications continue to stay relatively steady, just making sure that you're reading your notice of change to see that nothing really off kilter is happening with the plan itself, you are fine to let those plans roll over if your medications have stayed constant.
Yeah, I think that's one of the common misconceptions because the TV set is yelling at you to do something. You
Right.
don't need to do anything. Everything that you've got currently will roll over to the next year. Now, is that the best option? Yeah, usually these things don't change all that dramatically. But boy, you'll see people that have been in the same drug program for years and years, and unbeknownst to them, the rates just continue to go up. You can actually have these drug programs paid for 3 different ways. They can send you a coupon book. That's okay. You could set it up on auto drafts and have it automatically taken out of your checking account. You can also have the drug programs pulled directly out of your Social Security benefit payment. Please don't do that. It takes eyes off, and you only see once a year that price has gone up. And we see people, I had one a year ago where she was complaining as we were looking at her finances that she's never seen a cost of living increase in the 5 years she's been on Social Security. And I know that's impossible. Every year there's been, except for 1 year, every year there's been a cost of living increase. And then the light bulb went off and I said, are you having your drug program taken out of your Social Security check? She didn't realize that every year that drug program went up and it ate up her cost of living increase. So we want to keep eyes on this. And to Robin's point, you don't need to do this all with the same company. What you want is the best supplement for you and the best supplement for your loved one. And the best drug program for you may be totally different than the best drug program for your spouse because you're taking different medications. And we'll do year over year reviews with folks that weren't even our clients initially. And they'll come in and they'll show us what they've got. And lo and behold, they did everything with the same company. And that's a dead giveaway. They worked with a captive agent, somebody that only represented one company, and they shoehorned them into what that company offered. One of the big companies out there, they've got 3 different drug programs, but none of them are very competitive at all. But you see that they did their supplement and their drug programs with that same company. And I always got to ask, I know the answer, why did you do that? Well, the agent said it would be easier that way. And it was definitely easier for the agent because he didn't have to license with multiple companies. He didn't have to do the certifications that we got to do every year to be allowed to represent these products. Medicare forces us through a gauntlet of different tests and quizzes and certifications every year. And a lot of agents, well, I'm not even going to bother with that. Well, that's silliness because they're not providing the best possible service to their clients. They're just skimming the cream. Most people are going to start right here. Yeah,
we did get a quick question about amounts changing year over year. The insurance companies will fiddle around with the premium amounts. They'll also decide what drugs they do and don't want to cover under every plan that they offer. But Medicare sets that annual deductible on Medicare Part D. We'll see that shift up about $10 for next year. And they also establish those thresholds that move you through the stages of coverage. And so those typically rise a little bit every year as well. But Medicare sets those amounts, not the insurance companies. I want to say
next year, what we've got, the deductible is $445, I believe.
$445, yeah. To cross the initial stage of coverage into the coverage gap is $4130.
Right.
And then to fall into catastrophic coverage, it's $6550.
Right. So again, to the point that we said before. Everything goes up a little bit each year, and it's all there for you to see. You just got to defend yourself and realize that these numbers will change. This is one pathway called Original Medicare. This is where most people are going to start. It's what your mom and dad did. We love it. I mean, any doctor, any hospital, anywhere in the United States, and you're telling me I can have a supplement that's reasonably priced, that my entire deductible for the year is $198, that's pretty sweet. And a drug program customized to what you want it to be. But it's also not unusual. We see a lot of our clients, or a lot of people that weren't our clients initially and might have not made super smart choices, and we get a chance to work with them and review what they've done. And you know, dad is sitting around the kitchen table and he's got all of his explanation of benefits and his calculator and his pencil, and he's going through this. And you know, honey, when we started, this was all fairly reasonable, but now here we are, 72, 73, and your supplement and your drug program is costing us $250 a month. And my supplement and my drug program is another $250 a month. That's $500 a month. That's $6,000 a year. And as far as I can tell, between the two of us, we went to the doctor 7 times this year. 7 doctor visits for $6,000. Isn't that a bit spendy? And that might force him to the table. Might be time to pull it out of the kitchen drawer, take a look at it, sit down with somebody who's going to analyze this for you. And we would immediately start to think, well, you don't need the F. You're just, there's no way that you need the all-you-can-eat buffet if you're only going to the doctor 7 times a year. The G would be a smarter and could make a lot of sense. It'd be smart to downshift your coverage. And we can do that. If your health is good, all 39 doors are open to us. If your health is rotten, we've still got a company that would allow us to downshift without medical questions. And the drug program, I'm sorry, you're telling me that you did everything with the same company initially and you've never looked at the drug program for 7 years? That's low-hanging fruit, that's for sure. And we can tune them up and we can save them money. And that's a good feeling, and they're appreciative. But then they also start to be intrigued by this concept of Medicare Advantage. Now, this is a different idea. We said that the federal government ain't running Medicare for the $144.60 you're mailing in. They're dropping north of $850 a month on us. And they contract with private insurance companies, and big boys play here. This is AARP, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Humana, Aetna, Cigna, companies you've heard of before, and many that you've never heard of before, which I'm always a bit leery of. But in this world, the government will send that money to a private insurance company, and now they turn over everything to that company. We literally call them Medicare replacement plans, because although you still keep A and B, and you still pay the Part B premium, remember, you got to have that to do anything. In this instance, everything now gets run through a single player, a single insurance company. Here you've got 3 parts to your coverage: Medicare's primary, drug program, supplement, those 3 acting in concert. Here, one company steps in and does everything. These Advantage programs will be advertised like crazy during open enrollment because they are big business, big money. Because the insurance company figures, well, wait a second, if I sign up Bob and the government's giving me close to 10 grand a year to run his health care, we could do a pretty good job with that. The first thing you want to know about Advantage programs, number 1, they will be more network restrictive. Here you're going from a world where you can see any doctor, any hospital, anywhere in the United States, they take Medicare, you're in. With an Advantage program, no, it will be more limited. It may be a PPO chassis where you've got to keep it all within the company, Aetna or Blue Cross or Humana or Cigna, that type of thing. But more likely, the real genesis of these things was in an HMO chassis. And that means that you'd keep everything within a provider group. Not hard to imagine. We have an embarrassment of riches here in the DuPage County area, where you've got DuPage Medical Group, you've got Advocate, you've got Edward Elmhurst, you've got Northwestern, you've got Amita, and these companies contract with the private insurance companies. And now you've got the potential where, if you understand that they are network restrictive, you could potentially drive premiums down. If you agreed to keep everything, say, within DuPage Medical Group, and it's not hard to do, they've got 840 physicians, but in that world, the DuPage primary is only going to refer you to the DuPage Derm, the DuPage Endo, the DuPage Gastro. That's how an HMO works. But if you're giving up that selection, if you're agreeing to keep everything within that provider group, and Advantage programs have co-payments for services, there's no deductible. You just immediately go to a menu of co-payments Maybe a primary is $5, a specialist is $25, a emergency room's $120. Ooh, you took the ambulance, that's $250. A night in the hospital is a set charge, a set charge, a set charge. But so with no deductible and only co-payments for services on a more restrictive network, you can drive these advantage programs all the way down to a zero premium, and that's what they're screaming at you on TV. Zero this, zero that, zero the next thing. But Mama didn't raise no fool. You don't get something for nothing. And the trade-off here is that although the premiums are lower, the out-of-pocket exposure can be higher based upon your medical needs. Here we're agreeing to a set of co-payments and a more restrictive network of doctors and hospitals, but the trade-off is that those co-payments may add up to be way less than what you were going to be spending over here. This couple is ready next year to spend $6,000, whether they go to the doctor or not. On this side of the equation, we always preach the gospel of the cookie jar. You're going to take that $6,000 and you're going to put it in a cookie jar, and you're only going to pay for what you need, like those god-awful Liberty Mutual commercials with the ostrich, right? Only pay for what you need. And this is kind of an interesting concept that's growing in popularity because it represents the possibility of significant savings. But all of these advantage programs, we also call them Part C, we also call them Medicare replacement plans. They all got to play by the rules that Medicare has set. And Medicare has very, very simply laid out everything. And all these guys got to show you their benefits in exactly the same way. All of these advantage programs will have some form of a restrictive network. You're not going to get to see any doctor, any hospital. You're going to agree to more network restrictions. But depending on who your doctors are, depending on your health, this could be an interesting option. All of them are going to have co-payments for services. But the beauty of Medicare is they force all of these companies to show you their benefits exactly the same way. Yeah, they'll have different print face and they'll have different color and they'll have different happy smiling people, but the actual benefits will lay out line by line, and we can lay them out here on the desk and show you every one of them and see where the best package of benefits for your situation could be. All of them will have capped exposure, and that's critically important. That's the firewall. That's the maximum out of pocket if it all goes sideways. Remember where we started. A and B really good, but A and B not complete. A and B unlimited benefit, but A and B unlimited exposure. With an advantage program, at least you've put in a firewall. And that will be different among the different companies. The one we like a lot this year, the worst case scenario is $2,750. That's for doctors and facilities. Drugs are separate. But for doctors and facilities, worst case scenario, $2,750. This couple was going to spend $6,000. Even if it all went wrong on that program and they both needed multiple knee replacements, they're out. A worst case scenario is $5,500. But if this year is anything like last year and they go to the doctor 7 times, the specialist was $40, the primary was $10, and there was the trip to the emergency room, that was $90, and he needed an MRI, that was $125, and then she had that upper respiratory thing and had a couple of, they haven't dropped anywhere near $500 in a calendar year. Worst case scenario, $5,500 on the two of them. Best case scenario, a few $100s. And if it's done correctly, and Robin and myself, we're very detailed on these things. The commercials make them sound like the greatest thing since sliced bread, and they have a very good place in the market, but you need to understand the specifics of what's going on in these things. Sometimes the agents love to just push you into it because it's a zero premium plan. You'd be a fool to pay a premium. Not necessarily, depending on your situation. All of them will include a Part D drug prescription program bound right up in the chassis, but the rules of engagement remain the same. You've got the initial stage of coverage. You still have the coverage gap. You've still got catastrophic. The difference here is that you might not be paying a premium for that drug program. And the difference here is if you know where to look and you look at all the different programs that are offered, there can be sweet spots hidden in these advantage programs. A good example, 2 years ago, one of the advantage programs treated insulin, which is typically a tier 3 drug. It's pretty darned expensive. And on just insulin alone, you can easily fall into the coverage gap. Well, one of the advantage programs offered insulin as a sweetener. They carried it as a tier 1 generic, priced it at a zero copay right through the coverage gap. Now, if you're taking insulin, that'll get your attention. And if you tell us you're taking insulin, that's something we're definitely going to look at. But if you work with a captive agent that doesn't represent that company, you're never even going to find out about that. That's why information is so important. And these things are all available to us during the annual election period. That's the October 15th through December 7th. You have the ability to go and certainly shop and look at what's available on these Advantage programs. They can be very intriguing. In that world, they're going to add sweeteners. They want your business. They want to capture you. So several years ago, they started offering a gym club membership. Well, pretty much everybody now has the gym club membership. It's called Silver Sneakers. They'll offer dental and vision and hearing and a debit card where you get to buy stuff out of their catalog. But those sweeteners are not the reason to do this type of program. They're a nice addition, and they're very attractive. But remember, when you see these ads on TV and they're talking about zero this and zero that and zero the other thing, the first thing you want to know, what I want to know, what's the out-of-pocket maximum? What's the worst case scenario? Because they never mention that on the TV. I want to know who your doctors are, because they never mention that on TV. They talk about dental. Yeah, but the chance that your dentist is going to be in their program, pretty slim, but we can look it up. But all the details and all the parameters here have to be gone through in detail. Right now in the market, it's about 65% original Medicare, 35% Medicare Advantage. And I would tell you that our business, between Robin and myself and the people we work with, we're about 80% supplement and 20% Advantage. Why is that? Because we're very particular about Advantage. I'm not just going to do that because of the zero premium. You need to know all the details that are involved in that situation. So many people, and you'll run into them at a cocktail party. I just spoke with a woman on the phone earlier today. She was talking to a guy who was trying to explain to her that he has a supplement and he pays zero for it. There's no such thing as a $0 supplement. He's got an Advantage program and he obviously has no idea what he's done. People will pick up the phone and they'll call and they'll get a sales agent. Sounds like the greatest thing ever. And what will happen is they'll wind up getting into an Advantage program and not understanding the parameters. And that's just a word of caution. But even Medicare protects you. Medicare kind of likes this idea because they're turning you over to a private insurance company. They don't have to deal with your billing issues. They don't have to deal with your phone calls. Everything now is run by this private insurance company. And they'll even allow you to try an Advantage program. They give you what's called a trial right. Anytime in the first year that you've ever tried an Advantage, that could be when you first come to Medicare, that could be when you're 75 or 85. In that world, Medicare says you get 1 full year to try this thing on for size. Let's see how it works. Let's take it around the block. Let's go see some doctors. Anytime, excuse me, anytime in that first year you don't like it, you're able to bail out and go back over here to original Medicare and get exactly what you had when you left Medicare. Or if you're the first time that you're coming to Medicare and you start with Advantage, you reserve the right anytime in that year to come back and get yourself a supplement and a drug program, guaranteed, can't be denied. But we're over here, and the first year, oh, it's magic. They've saved thousands of dollars, and they stay for a year or 2 or 3. But when they want to come back over here to this side of the equation, one, they'd have to wait for the annual election period. And we could go ahead and put A and B back into primary position and guaranteed issue on a drug program, and you can apply for a supplement. I'm sorry, what was that again? Well, on the supplements, they're going to ask you medical questions. If you've been here for more than a year, they're going to underwrite you. But what gives us the confidence to be able to even sell these Medicare Advantage programs is the knowledge that in Illinois, we've got a fallback position. We've got a Medicare supplement company that doesn't ask any medical questions. And that can make these very interesting to try. We talked about people who come to Medicare via disability. They're under 65. These insurance companies see them coming, and they know the only way they can get Medicare A and B under 65 is via disability, and that risk pool files more claims than the average healthy 65-year-old. So they charge way more for the supplements. And sometimes for folks that are disabled, this can be a better place to be because the premiums that they would pay for a supplement and a drug program are more than the worst case scenario here on the Advantage program. But again, the beauty of Advantage, robust competition, complete transparency. We can see what everybody's doing. And frankly, I'll be very excited to see all those benefits when they roll out. We can see them October 1st. Rob?
We got a question that we always get, which is how flexible are these things, right? Advantage, can you take them anywhere? Do they pay when you're traveling out of state? They always pay in an emergent situation. So whether you are on an HMO version or a PPO version of one of these plans, you'll be covered in an emergency. But another thing to take into consideration, as David mentioned, doctors are number one, the medications you're taking are number two. Your lifestyle is equally as important. You know, do you have a second home? Do you spend 6 months out of the year outside of the state of Illinois? If the answer is yes to those questions, you travel, you have homes in other places, family in other places where you know you're going to be for a few months at a crack, I wouldn't advise necessarily getting an HMO version of these plans, but certainly a PPO would be better suited to your needs. And David and I know which carriers have PPO networks that run on a national doctor network where you don't have to call the plan every time you want to transport your benefits here, there, and everywhere. But that is certainly a consideration. Your lifestyle and how you will be using the healthcare system in a calendar year is going to be equally important to which side of this equation you fall on. But yes, when you are out of state, you'll be covered in an emergency. On a PPO, you'll have more of an opportunity to stay in network and have out-of-network benefits if you need them. On an HMO, you will not. Anything you do out of network, out of state, is going to be on you from a cost perspective.
So there's a zero premium HMO. Well, I understand that. So it's a zero premium because it's really restrictive. But there's zero premium PPOs now. They've come into vogue. This has become big business, and the insurance companies want to capture you. So they'll do a zero premium PPO. But wait a second. How do they do that? Well, if you want more selection, insurance companies are happy to do whatever you want them to do. But the more selection that you want, those are going to change the benefit structure, meaning more than likely that out-of-pocket maximum for a PPO is going to be higher than where they can control you in an HMO. So there's a trade-off. There's no such thing as a free lunch. But 4 years ago, 5 years ago, there was no zero premium PPO. And now this year, there's 3 zero premium PPOs. We know of 5 that are going to be available next year. Zero premium PPOs. That's a great combination of flexibility and low premiums. But again, what's the out-of-pocket maximum? What are the co-payments? And the beauty of these Advantage programs is Medicare forces them to lay out all their benefits side by side. You can see exactly what each of them are doing. Here's a hypothetical of how one of those programs could work. The monthly plan premium is zero. The deductible is zero. You just immediately go into a series of co-payments. This one says $5 for a primary, $40 for a specialist. They front load the wellness, mammogram, pap smear, bone density, colorectal, flu shot, annual physical, all zero copay because they know if they catch it early, they're going to save a lot of money. This particular program says $250 a night in the hospital, but after 7 nights, they stop charging you this $250 and it's covered. You go out of network though, that gets pretty spendy. That's up to $400 there, and you've got 40% co-insurance for this wellness stuff. Your co-payments here go up as well, but the most important number here, you stay in network. Your firewall is $3,800. Here, you go out of network, there's no firewall. So what this is telling you is you better darn well know the rules of engagement and live within their parameters. People will get into these Advantage programs. They'll find a doctor or someone that doesn't take that Advantage program, and they say, well, hey, that's no problem whatsoever. I'll just use my Medicare card. No, you won't. You've exited Medicare, and now you're with a single insurance company. You try to use that Medicare card, they're just going to send you the bill back and say, sorry, you're not covered. You're with an Advantage program. Co-payment for a lab test, co-payment for an x-ray, co-payment for the ambulance, co-payment for the emergency room. I get it. But if you're starting with $6,000 in the cookie jar, that can make a lot of sense. And we see a lot of improvements year over year, and they're getting more and more competitive.
And there is no, David, I'm sure you mentioned this, but there is no medical underwriting to enroll in an Advantage plan. You will not be asked anything about your health. And if you think about it, it's because day one, dime one, you're sharing in the cost for everything you do in the healthcare system. So if you come with a set of challenges, there's a menu of services and there's an associated copay for everything. What you hear the advertisers screaming on TV that's 000 outside of an occasional premium for certain plans is mostly the preventative care. Most primary care office visits won't have a copay. Any of the covered Medicare preventative bone density tests, glaucoma screenings, mammograms, colonoscopies, those will have no copay. But when you get into anything else, that's when you're going to have an associated cost sharing as you use the healthcare system. And certainly we always get asked, well, if you're generally healthy and not on any medications, why wouldn't you just do Advantage? Isn't that only for healthy people? Not necessarily. For people that are relatively unhealthy and they're looking at high premiums based on their age or geography in a supplement and a drug plan, having that max out-of-pocket amount to protect them on their annual healthcare expense and Advantage could be a more interesting proposition for them. But certainly for someone who's healthy, all options are open to you, and Advantage could be one way that you save money early on in your Medicare journey.
Or later on, when you're finally settled down, right, and you're not traveling a lot, you're no longer snowbird, and now you're 94 and you're paying $450 a month for your supplement and drug program. Well, that could definitely be way more than what your out-of-pocket maximum would be. So there's many ways. It's always easy to go from a supplement to a Advantage plan because there's no questions going that direction. The issue is when you want to come back, that they will ask you medical questions, and that could limit your choices as to where you would go.
So one quick question we had on Advantage about the plans negotiating their own deals with the doctors. Yes. So from the standpoint of participation in the network. So every insurance company for their various plans every year will contract with the major medical groups, the physician groups like Advocate or Northwestern or DuPage, and they'll decide which plans they're going to participate in. However, the cost sharing is constructed around the Medicare reimbursement model. So it's not like in any of these Advantage plans, the insurance companies can go way off the rails and charge you an exorbitant amount for something that Medicare might charge you much less for. So it is based on the Medicare reimbursement model. These plans are overseen by Medicare. They all have star ratings. So they definitely, need to remember, these insurance companies are in a contract with the federal government to take over for your care. So there are rules that they have to follow and certain parameters. So like I said, they can't charge exorbitant amounts for services that you would perhaps pay much, much less in the Medicare system.
True that. So we're back to where we started. This is the Medicare roadmap. And hopefully what you've learned here tonight, A and B really good, but A and B not complete. We'd certainly want to look at a Medicare supplement and a drug program if we chose this pathway. And then there's the other possibility of a Medicare Advantage program. And believe me, we've seen people make mistakes every which way you can make mistakes. What Robin and I do is help you navigate this world. There's no charge to you for our services. We're completely free. We get reimbursed by the insurance companies. And what you pay for any of these products going through us is exactly the same as what you'd pay going through an 800 number or a website someplace. What we want to do is coach you up, shorten the learning curve, show you everything in the marketplace, and help you to make fully informed decisions. This is too important to wing it. And God love your brother-in-law. He doesn't know everything about everything. You want to research what's exactly right for your particular situation. And that's where I think we can really help you guys out. I would say thank you for sitting through this. This was a long one, Robin. We got some good questions.
It was long. Yeah.
And I apologize for rambling on. I shouldn't have had my cup of coffee, but there's a lot here. And I know you may think that this was killing it, but we really just touched on the highlights here. There's a lot of information. If you guys got 70% of this tonight, you get a passing grade. Do it again. Christina's going to have it on film, and you can go through YouTube and watch it again. Every time you get, whether it's our presentation or someone else's, you're going to find that you learn a little bit more about the world of Medicare. And it's important to defend yourself, not only for today, but further down the road. And the people that you know, we always say there's no charge for our services, but we just ask that anybody who asks you, how did you figure this out? You tell them, I got a guy, I got a woman, I got somebody for you to talk to. That's what we love. Christina? What do you think?
Hey, thanks.
Start the wave.
I'm the only one clapping, but yay, that's great. All right, so like you said, we're recording this, so please check it out on the library's YouTube page. We should have it up sometime tomorrow.
Cool.
And yeah, if you wanted to tell anybody else about it, go check out the library's YouTube page. And then, yeah, contact David and Robin at Medicare Solutions Network if you have any more questions.
Beautiful.
Yeah, you guys had some great questions tonight. I hope we got to all of them. If not, feel free to contact us. There's no fee to get our consultation or advice on anything. It's a tricky subject.
To say the least. Thank you, folks. Have a very good
Thanks.
night and stay healthy.
All right, good night, everyone.
Good night.